Hi, I'm Katrina, and this is Boldly Challenging Ableism. I'm your host, Katrina Simons. I'm the Community Program Specialist at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. This program explores various topics that impact people with disabilities in our community. Each episode addresses a different aspect of our society within the context of ableism. Ableism is the prejudice that stems from the belief or belief system that assumes someone is less capable or less worthy because of a real or perceived difference in ability or function. On this program, we hope to answer some questions you may have been afraid to ask, or maybe some you didn't even know you had. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Boldly. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you're having a good day. Today, our guest is Jen Sommerness, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about ableism in education. And we thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Okay, so Jen, tell us about can you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Jen Sommerness. I am a researcher here at the Institute on Community Integration, and I'm part of the TIE Center, which we can talk more about what that is, I bet, and the National Center for Educational Outcomes as well. So
sounds good. And your background is?
I started as a special education teacher and actually taught in inclusive places, or if they weren't inclusive, then I would help create inclusive environments for kids. And you and I were just talking about how I taught in 5 different states in the span of like 7 years when I first started.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal necessarily, but it was really pretty cool because I just leaned into it. So every time I'd have a new place we were living, I would teach like a different age group of kids or a different, disability category or, like different classroom settings and things like that.
And at that time, what were the categories? Well,
and that was interesting too, because different states have different labels for what they're doing in schools. And so in Wisconsin, it was actually like a K through 12 licensure that you would get for kids with cognitive disabilities, and it was much more general on purpose so that you could team with and collaborate with your other colleagues more often and differently, versus like in New Mexico when I was there. The only group that I hadn't really been with was middle school. And so I thought, okay, I'll go to middle school, which was super fun, but it's kind of a challenge. But I had a blast. But the group of kids that I was teaching when I was there, they actually were, the classroom that I was in was D-level cross-categorical is what it was called.
So does that mean it was like the people who needed the most support across all diagnoses?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much what that was. And what I could tell was that it was kids who had ultimately just by that age in middle school, unfortunately, had pretty much given up on like wanting to be there. Yeah. So, wow. But it was my favorite experience, I think, is getting that group of kids to not only trust me, but trust all the other teachers and get them into the classes. And I did a lot of co-teaching there. There was one that was a math and science teacher who was actually from the neighborhood the school that I was in, and she also had a son there who did not have an IEP.
Oh.
Yeah, in the middle school, he was there, and so she just naturally got the why of like why we would want to include kids with disabilities and why we would want to.
And he did not have one, or he had one?
Her son did not, but she, just because she was a part of that community, just understood like the inclusive belonging pieces and all of that, creating community in schools and stuff. And so she, even though she had never included kids with disabilities in her class before, she really wanted to try, and she was open to it. That. So, yeah.
Okay, and just in case, for our listeners, an IEP is an individualized education plan, and there's like 2 official documents that exist for when people need extra support at school, and one of them is an IEP and the other is a 504. And a 504 lets you have an accommodation for the work, like more time or something like that. And an IEP is generally more intensive and it lets you modify the work. So you can have, do a lower grade coursework in one subject or many subjects if you need it.
Yeah.
And things like that. Okay, I just wanted to let people know. What drove you into special ed?
I actually, whenever I get this question, it's funny because I think of like a different story each time.
Okay.
But because I actually was pre-med and I thought that I wanted to be a pediatrician, and it was just because I knew that I love kids. Like I've always loved, the idea of working within systems that have children in them. And when I was pre-med, I was just like so focused on that. And one of the summers that I was at school and just needed a job because I was taking summer school, and I was in Madison, and the closest thing to my apartment that would work into my schedule was at a preschool. And so I thought, oh, I can totally do that. And it was like in the old days where it was actually in the paper. So I looked in the paper and found this place. And I didn't know at the time that was actually like a paraprofessional position. And so it was like a completely inclusive preschool.
I love that.
And it was twins actually who had autism as an attribute. And
really?
Yeah, they were awesome. And they were and they're my reason why,
Do you still keep up with them?
I kept up with them until probably 15 years ago, and I've lost track. So, and in terms of just like knowing how they were doing.
Yeah.
And I loved it so much that not only did I spend time with them at school, but then their mom, who was a single mom, asked me to like come over and do respite and things on weekends. And I loved it. Like they were just, they were pretty awesome. Yeah.
That's great. I love that story.
Yeah.
What is your job here now at ICI?
So now I'm largely on working with the TIES Center. And so TIES is a National Technical Assistance Center. And so we try to help systems create inclusive systems for people with disabilities. So we work with school level, we work with district level, we work at the state level. And we do a lot right now that is, kind of external contracts and things.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that our center used to be federally funded. And now it's not, which actually the good news about that is that we can kind of expand the scope of what we focus on. When we were a nationally funded center, they wanted us to be K through 8, and now we can be like pre-K all the way into transition age and focus on kids who are multi-language learners and things like that. And so we help do a lot of professional development and pretty much customize anything that people need to be able to support the work and change their systems.
And when you say you used to be federally funded, it wasn't like 2 weeks ago you lost your federal funding and had to find new funding.
Right. No, it was longer than that. I think it was 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So we were the federally funded center for 5 years, and then now we are working largely just with external contracts and things like that. So did you move to purposefully be non-federally funded because it had fewer guidelines that you were locked into? No, we ended up we went for the proposal and we didn't get funded. Okay. And so it was not of our choosing to not be funded anymore.
But you pivoted beautifully.
But we pivoted beautifully, yes.
Way to go.
And I think that part has actually been like, us being able to figure out what we're really good at and then be able to like offer that in that way has been pretty exciting.
And how long have you been here at ICI?
Oh boy, it was just prior to COVID, and I lose track of time. So that was probably like 2019, 2018.
Can you give us an example of what a project might look like that the TIE Center does from like start to finish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We, So, for example, we have worked with the state of Washington since our federal funding, but we have continued to work with them and partner with them. And so we work at the state level with them to help with some, like just recently we did 2 different resources where we co-branded it with them and made it specific to Washington and some of their regulations and things. So one was a comprehensive inclusive education resource that focuses on general education and an inclusive IEP. And that one was really cool because we were able to take like all of their regulations and have them linked at the bottom, but then expand on how that would actually practically look in a building, with student stories and examples and things like that. And then we've been helping them kind of roll that out and disseminate it and do webinars and things around that resource. Another one we just did was a myths and facts resource that, working with them to make sure that we're calling out the things that are kind of barriers within their systems and helping them kind of myth bust those. So that's been fun too.
That was a great example. Thank you. But you work outside of Washington as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. We do. We've been working really closely with a number of different schools and districts. We don't necessarily work just at the state level. We work with a number of different schools across the country, actually.
So you can work across systems and then you can also work across states. That's really nice.
Yeah. If a school wants to work with us on a specific thing, we can do that. If a district wants to do something across multiple schools, we can do that. But we've been working a lot with all the different levels, which is really cool because my background actually was an independent consultant before TIES. And I felt very much like one student, one team at a time kind of work. And now to be able to work at school and district level and at state level is a huge impact. It's fun.
Well, and I don't think people know that like special ed is not just at a school level. Special ed is a district level, is a city level, is a state level, is a national level, is a right. There are so many layers to where we can work on special ed. We don't just have to go in the school and teach the kids.
Right.
I mean, but we love the teachers. We do.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love the teachers.
Can you give us an example of what a non-inclusive IEP looks like versus an inclusive IEP?
Oh, that's a great question.
I know. Thank you.
And I could talk IEPs all day. Like, that's my jam.
Me too.
So,
Me too.
Examples of IEPs that are inclusive versus not. I think of just IEP goals that are like these little steps to absolutely nowhere, or like splinter skills, or, you can just read them there, or IEPs that have so many goals, that are like this, just laden with kind of like thing, like you have to do this before you can do that. And, and life just isn't like that. Yeah. So we focus on major components of like these 3 major components of, interacting with people in relationships. That's like one bucket. And then participating in routines and transitions, that everybody does all day long. Like, how do we help people do more of that? And then one of the more important ones, obviously, is engaging in grade level academics and other essential skills, which we would put communication is a huge piece of that. Anything around supporting people's behavior is in that, self-advocacy, like that's in that essential skills part. And so we just help teams think about like those thousands of teachable moments that happen for everybody, and then help people understand how to write goals that would lend themselves to people practicing them across the whole day in gen ed. And so like an example of one that would be not so inclusive would be, Jen will, pronounce so many consonant, vowel, consonant words before going, and it's like a very, very detailed thing versus like, can I use my augmentative communication device across people, places, and settings more often? Can I do it with peers? Can I do it, in small groups? Can I do it in large groups? Can I, and so it's more designing a goal that can grow with a person. So we help people do that.
So instead of Katrina will zip her code independently 80% of the time, you might say Katrina will maximize her independence in putting on her coat at the same time as her peers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, that would be very good.
Okay.
We'll use that one.
It. You don't have to pay for it or anything. It's free. Can you tell us what something you worry about in the future of special education is? I wrote this before Trump was elected.
That's what I was going to say.
My bad. One of the things that I worry about in the future of special ed is as we try to increase inclusivity in special education, which I think is a really, really good idea, we're also facing a staffing shortage like we've never seen before, and there's no end in sight. So I worry that instead of providing kids with the necessary support for the maximum inclusivity, we're going to go backwards, and we're going to put all the kids with disabilities in one class again.
Yeah. I worry about that too.
Okay.
I worry about the constant tension that's there to pull things back because it's easier for whatever reason. And then when you add all the different variables that are going on right now, I think that scares me probably the most, is that all of the work that people have done, of getting it to the point, and yet there are so many places that still have a lot more to do. But it feels like when we're working at the national level, at state level, at district level, at school level, that the why is there, that people understand why we would want to do it. And so we've finally gotten to the point of how, and helping people understand how to do it really well. Mm-hmm. And I'm worried, because of teacher shortages or because of funding or because of changes like that, that people are going to kind of shrink back to
the easier way.
Yeah, where they were, I have to believe that no one shrinks back to where, like, anyone stretched.
I hope you don't go back 50 years.
Right? Like, that's the thing, is like, I have to believe that once you're stretched, that you don't shrink back to where you were completely, but it does scare me.
Can you tell us something that would surprise most people about students receiving special education services in school?
Well, you could go two ways on this.
Okay. Let's have them both.
Things that would surprise people who are doubters of it, I think, is just how much people can do. Like, that's surprising. That's not surprising to me. Like, I know what people can do, like.
Because you were in the classroom.
Yeah.
You saw it.
What students can do if they have the right supports, what students can do if they have high expectations, what they can do if they're with their peers, if they have access, that's not surprising to me how much people can do. But I think there are people that really are very surprised still that people with disabilities can do as much as they can do. So I'm not of that camp.
Okay.
And I never have been, because it's like I've only seen it where people are doing all the things and have access to all the things. Like the work that I've done is watching people get, active in things and have access to things. And if they don't, then it's creating those access points for people. Over, under, around, or through it. You figure out how to do it, Mm-hmm. But I would say that that's probably one of the things that people, I think, would be the most surprised at, is just how much success there can be for a person when you have these things in place. Like I said, I don't feel that way personally, because I just have lived that experience, and you have too, right?
Okay.
So, but I would say that another thing I think that people would think is surprising, I think, this is like where I start to get bunched up, is like, there are so many people who should have communication devices, for example, that don't.
I love AAC. And my bestie is a speech therapist, and she loves AAC.
And it's surprising to me, and I think it would be surprising to others. And I think people would really care if more people knew how few people actually have a basic civil right of being able to, like, talk with an AAC device.
Well,
we have to do better.
And we were kind of just talking about this weekend, because she came to visit for the first time in 6 years, and then you brought this up, so it was like perfect timing. We talk about how you see people in wheelchairs in the community all the time, of all different ages. So you know that people can be successful in the community in wheelchairs across the lifespan. But you hardly ever see somebody use AAC in the community, because usually when you do, it's somebody living with ALS, which is very different than when a child uses AAC. So then she works with 3 to 6 year olds. So she tries to encourage these parents to use AAC outside of the school space, the space where she treats. And they don't always participate because they've never seen it before. So they don't know what it looks like to be successful in implementing AAC.
The parents don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, so the 3 to 6 year old thing makes it a little bit more challenging, because you're probably just grappling with the fact that you had a child that, maybe wasn't quite the way that, like, parenthood is not going the way you maybe imagined it. And that can take a while to wrap your head around.
And I think that kids who are 3 to 6 have different levels of wanting to communicate.
Right.
You're right.
Without a disability.
Exactly.
So if you add in a disability.
And I even think of, my own kids. It's like how they communicated was completely different in that age. But yeah, I mean, and especially if it's like one of your first children or something and you haven't, I could see that where AAC for that age group out and about is, but I think it's partly because we don't do it well in schools for anybody, I think it goes back to that piece of it. One of the schools in Washington, you had asked about like the start to finish. One of the things that we're lucky enough to do is actually work in schools and districts too, and support teachers and things. And there's one school there that, like, I thought I knew what the perfect school would look like. And I'm sure that these people would say that it's not perfect, but it is so cool in part because they have communication boards everywhere, and they have access to communication as a part of like just their every single day instruction for everybody. And all of the kids are writing in different ways or speaking in different ways than one another. Like it just, the whole culture of it, because of the just really rich communication that's there, whether kids are multilingual learners or kids with disabilities or not, it's really cool. So
I think I'm really hoping that the fact that you can now put the software for communication devices on iPads will really be helpful, because I mean, it's been a few years now that we can do that, but it takes a few years for people to know that that's possible. And I really hope that it makes it easier for everybody to use. I always for Halloween, I always have my iPad with me because I have the free version of the software on there.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, well, you never know. What if a kid comes up and they're used to using AAC, and I put all the, buttons on there for like the different candies,
or
so
something.
They can.
Yeah.
No, it's just the different candy.
Oh yeah.
So they can show me which one they pick. Because I just hope one day that it'll be that normal for people to use communication devices.
Yeah. Yeah. I have hope.
I think only one kid has used it one time, but
that's better.
But that's better than zero. So yeah,
and I don't know. It's just someone seeing that will think, oh, why don't we do that more often?
Yeah, and we used to be able to say, well, not be able. We used to use the excuse that it's expensive, and yet it still is expensive, especially if the kid needs like an alternate access input method, like eye gaze or something. But it's also becoming more accessible slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I really hope we get there.
Me too. That would be I think people would be surprised at how few people don't have that.
Yeah.
And that the question just doesn't even come up half the time of
right.
like, what would that look like?
Or
what
like
would be best?
We don't even really realize as a society that communication is a big deal.
Right.
We always think about walking.
Right.
Which was great for me, but it's not great for everybody.
We got to go to the next one. Walking, check.
Yeah.
Talking, check.
Yeah. What can the public do to support all children accessing and receiving a quality education that they will appreciate for the rest of their lives?
Well, that is a big question.
I know, sorry, and I went really fast because we're almost done.
Well, you can cut out other parts too if you want. I think like what you're talking about, like having things like that. Like if you know that someone might need it, just having like these are small ways, like there's the big ways and there's like the everyday things that we can do. And I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of a proponent of having the everyday little things around and just working at it that way.
Yeah, well, I don't think we don't even have any communication boards in this building, and we serve people with, we don't. I see I doesn't, but the clinic next door does. So we should get some, we'll get some boards.
We should get some boards.
We'll paste them up all over the place.
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll get some boards. Okay.
We'll get
Sounds good.
some boards.
Well, Jen, this has been delightful.
It was wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on Boldly. We're going to send you your episode when we finish editing, but we'll be able to find it on Facebook and also the radio.
Awesome.
On AM 950.
Awesome.
Okay, so we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into Boldly. We hope you have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Boldly Challenging Ableism is a co-production of AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. For more information, please visit ici.umn.edu.